Hey everyone, welcome back to the English Leap podcast, your podcast for easy English conversation, real daily life talk, and simple listening practice.
I'm Jake.
And I'm Anna. So Jake, quick question. Do you enjoy small talk or does it make you a little nervous?
Honestly, it depends on the day. Sometimes I enjoy it, but other times, especially in a new language or with someone I don't know well, it can feel surprisingly stressful.
I think that's such a common feeling, and it's honestly a perfect topic for today because small talk feels simple on the surface, just casual conversation, but it actually has its own rules, patterns, and useful phrases that make it much easier once you know them.
Right, and for English learners specifically, small talk can feel especially intimidating because it's fast, casual, and often full of idioms or expressions that aren't taught in traditional lessons.
Exactly. So today, we're talking about how to make small talk in English, practical phrases, common topics, and simple techniques to keep a casual conversation going naturally.
This is such a useful practical episode too, since small talk happens everywhere, at work, in shops, with neighbors, while traveling, honestly, almost anywhere you interact with new people.
Right, and getting comfortable with small talk can genuinely open a lot of doors, both socially and professionally.
Before we start, quick reminder, if you enjoy this episode, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who's learning English too.
And tell us in the comments, what's a small talk situation that makes you nervous? Writing about it is also great English practice.
Okay, let's get into it.
Let's start with the basics. Jake, how would you describe small talk?
I'd say small talk is light, casual conversation about everyday, non-serious topics, usually used to build a friendly connection rather than to share deep, important information.
Right, and I think that's actually the key thing people misunderstand about small talk. It's not really about the specific topic, the weather, the weekend, traffic. It's about the social connection happening underneath those simple words.
Exactly. Small talk is really a way of saying, I see you, I'm friendly, and I'm open to a little connection, without needing to share anything particularly personal or important.
Right, and once you understand that small talk isn't really about the content, it becomes a lot less intimidating, because you don't need brilliant, interesting things to say. You just need simple, friendly, low-pressure exchanges.
That's such an important shift in mindset, honestly. A lot of English learners feel pressure to say something impressive or clever during small talk, when really the goal is just warmth and friendliness, not intellectual conversation.
I also think it helps to remember that small talk usually has a clear, predictable structure too. A greeting, a light topic, a few exchanges, and then a polite ending. Once you recognize that pattern, it starts to feel much more manageable.
Right. It's almost like a simple, repeated recipe. Once you know the basic steps, you can adapt them to almost any casual situation without needing to reinvent the conversation each time.
Let's talk about why small talk specifically feels so challenging for English learners, even those with a fairly strong overall level.
Right. It's honestly one of those skills that can trip up even confident, advanced learners, simply because of how different it is from structured, planned conversation.
Right. I think one big reason is speed. Small talk tends to happen quickly, casually, without the slower pace of a planned conversation or lesson. Exactly. And it's also full of common expressions and idioms, things like not much, just the usual, or can't complain, which aren't always taught directly in traditional English classes.
Right. And there's also the pressure of needing to respond immediately without time to carefully plan a grammatically perfect sentence, which can feel especially stressful for learners who are used to having more time to think.
I think another big factor is cultural difference too. Small talk topics, and even how much small talk is expected, vary quite a bit between different cultures, which can feel confusing to navigate, especially at first.
Right. And finally, there's simply the fear of running out of things to say, that awkward silence moment that a lot of people, even native speakers, genuinely dread.
All of these reasons are completely valid, and honestly, understanding them already reduces some of the pressure, because now you know it's not just you struggling with this. It's a genuinely challenging skill for a lot of people.
I also think it helps to remember that small talk is actually a specific skill, separate from your general English level. You could have excellent grammar and vocabulary and still find small talk challenging, simply because it requires quick, casual thinking rather than careful, structured sentences.
Right, that's such an important distinction. Struggling with small talk doesn't necessarily reflect your overall English ability. It's really its own specific skill that needs its own specific practice.
Exactly. And the good news is, like any skill, it genuinely does get easier with practice. The same way any other part of language learning improves with repetition and exposure.
Okay, Jake, tell us about a small talk experience that taught you something valuable.
Happy to share. This one genuinely changed how I think about casual conversation altogether.
Sure. Years ago, when I moved to a new city, I remember standing in a small coffee shop line, and the person next to me made a simple comment about the weather. A classic small talk opener. Exactly, and at the time, I panicked a little internally, thinking I needed to say something clever or interesting back. So I just froze for a second, then gave a really short, awkward response. That's such a relatable moment, that internal pressure to say something impressive. Right, and afterward I felt embarrassed, thinking I had done something wrong. But later I realized the person wasn't looking for a clever response at all. They were just being friendly, and honestly, any simple, warm response would have worked perfectly fine. That's such an important realization. Right. Once I understood that small talk really just needs simple warmth, not impressive content, it became so much easier. I stopped overthinking every small interaction and just responded naturally, even with simple phrases. That's such a valuable lesson for our listeners too. Small talk isn't a test of your intelligence or English level. It's just a simple, friendly exchange. Right. And honestly, that coffee shop moment kind of stuck with me for years. It became this small, personal reminder whenever I felt nervous about a casual conversation. I just think simple warmth is enough. I really like that as a small mantra. Simple warmth is enough. It removes so much unnecessary pressure. Exactly. And now, small talk genuinely feels comfortable most of the time, precisely because I stopped trying to be impressive and just focused on being friendly and present in the moment. Let's go through some common small talk topics, ones that work well in most everyday, casual situations.
And just a quick note before we dive in, you don't need to memorize all of these perfectly. Just having a general familiarity with a few of them will already make small talk feel much more natural and manageable.
Right. This is probably the most classic small talk topic, especially in English-speaking cultures. Simple comments like, "Nice weather today, isn't it?" Or, "Can you believe how cold it's been?"
Right. Weather is such a safe, neutral topic because literally everyone experiences it, and it rarely leads to disagreement or discomfort.
Let's actually act out a quick example. Imagine we're waiting for a bus together. Jake, you start.
Sure. Wow, it's really sunny today. Finally, after all that rain.
I know, right? I almost forgot what sunshine looked like.
See, that's a complete natural small talk exchange. Simple, light, and easy.
Another common one, especially near the end or beginning of the week, any plans for the weekend? Or how was your weekend?
Right. This connects nicely to our Weekend Habits episode too. You already have plenty of things to talk about if you've been applying some of those small weekend habits.
Let's try another quick example. Any big plans for the weekend?
Not really. Just relaxing at home, maybe a short walk if the weather's nice. What about you?
Same here, honestly. I just want a quiet weekend this time. Notice how naturally that flowed. Question, answer, a small follow-up question back, and a friendly, honest response.
Commenting on your immediate surroundings works well too, like, "This place is really busy today," or "I love this coffee shop. Have you been here before?"
Right. This works especially well when you're physically sharing a space with someone. A waiting room, an elevator, a line at a shop.
For example, imagine standing in a crowded elevator. "Busy building today, huh?"
Tell me about it. I've never seen it this packed.
Simple, quick, and perfectly appropriate for that short, shared moment.
Asking simple, general questions about someone's work or studies, like, what do you do? Or are you studying something interesting?
Right, but it's worth keeping this light too, especially at first. Deeper career discussions can come later once the conversation naturally develops.
A simple example, so what do you do?
I work in marketing, actually, for a small local company. What about you?
Oh, nice. I'm currently studying business, actually. What's marketing like? Do you enjoy it?
Right. Notice how each response naturally invites another small question, keeping the exchange balanced and flowing. If you're meeting someone while traveling or discussing travel in general, questions like, "Have you traveled here before?" or "What's your favorite place you visited?" work really well.
For example, is this your first time visiting the city?
Actually, yes, first time. It's beautiful so far. Have you lived here long?
About 5 years now, and I still love it. Let me know if you need any recommendations.
That's such a warm, natural way for a conversation to develop from a simple travel question.
And food, always a safe, enjoyable topic. Have you tried the food here? Or do you have a favorite restaurant nearby?
Right, food tends to bring people together, and almost everyone has an opinion or preference to share.
Have you tried the pasta here? It's supposed to be really good.
Not yet, but now I definitely want to. Any other recommendations?
Right. Food-related small talk almost always leads naturally into more conversation, since people love sharing their favorites. Let's go through some specific, practical phrases you can use directly in small talk conversations. These are grouped for purpose too. Starting a conversation, commenting on a situation, asking questions, showing interest, and ending politely, so you have a full toolkit for any stage of a casual exchange.
Starting a conversation. "Hi, how's it going?" Or, "Hey, how are you doing today?" These are casual, friendly openers that work in most everyday situations.
Right. And a simple response could be, "Pretty good, thanks. How about you?" Keeping the conversation balanced and moving naturally.
A few more useful openers: "Mind if I join you?" for sitting somewhere shared, or "Excuse me, do you know if this seat's taken?" which naturally opens a small conversation too.
Right. And even something as simple as, "Long day, huh?" said with a friendly smile can be a perfectly natural way to start a conversation with almost anyone.
Commenting on the situation like, "This line is taking forever, isn't it?" or "It's so busy here today." Simple observations about your shared situation are great conversation starters.
Right. These work especially well because they're based on something you're both experiencing together in that exact moment.
A few more examples: "Wow, this place has really grown," if you're somewhere that's changed, or "I love this song. It's one of my favorites," if there's music playing nearby.
Right. Shared observations are honestly one of the easiest ways to start small talk, since you don't need any special knowledge about the other person at all.
Asking open questions. Instead of questions that can be answered with just yes or no, try open questions like, "What have you been up to lately?" or "What do you like to do in your free time?"
Right. Open questions naturally invite longer, more detailed responses, which helps keep the conversation flowing rather than stopping quickly.
A few more open questions: "What's kept you busy lately?" "What do you think of this place?" or "How did you get into that?" if someone mentions a hobby or job.
Right. Compare that to a closed question like, "Do you like your job?" which often just gets a simple yes or no without much more conversation naturally following.
Showing interest. Simple phrases like, "Oh, really? That's interesting," or "Wow, that sounds fun," show genuine interest and encourage the other person to continue sharing.
Right, and these phrases don't need to be complicated. Even a simple, "Oh, nice," said warmly goes a long way in small talk.
A few more useful phrases: "No way, really? That's so cool," or "I had no idea, tell me more." Small, simple reactions that show you're genuinely listening.
Right, and body language matters here too. Nodding, smiling, and making eye contact all reinforce that you're truly engaged in the conversation.
And finally, phrases for gracefully ending a small talk conversation, like, "Well, it was really nice talking to you," or "I should get going, but it was great chatting with you."
Right. These phrases gracefully close the conversation without feeling abrupt or rude, which is exactly the tone you want for a friendly, casual exchange. Let's talk about how to actually keep a small talk conversation flowing rather than it stopping after just one or two exchanges.
Right. I think one of the most useful techniques here is what's sometimes called the follow-up question. Whenever someone shares something, try asking a small related follow-up question.
Right. For example, if someone says, "I just got back from a trip," instead of simply saying, "Nice," you could ask, "Oh, where did you go?" Or "How was it?" Exactly. That small follow-up naturally extends the conversation without requiring you to think of a completely new topic from scratch.
Another useful technique is sharing a small related detail about yourself, too, which naturally invites the other person to ask you something back, keeping the conversation balanced.
Right. For example, if someone mentions they enjoy hiking, you could say, "That's great. I went on a short hike last weekend myself," which naturally opens space for them to ask you more too.
And finally, it helps to genuinely listen rather than just waiting for your turn to speak. Really listening naturally gives you material for follow-up questions and comments.
I also want to mention a technique sometimes called echoing, simply repeating back a small part of what someone said with genuine interest, which naturally encourages them to continue.
Right. For example, if someone says, "I just started a new job," you could respond, "A new job? That's exciting. How's it going so far?" Repeating "new job" shows you're actively listening, not just waiting to talk.
Exactly. And this small technique works really well even if you're not sure what else to say, since it naturally invites the other person to share more, giving you time to think of your next question or comment.
I use this one a lot myself, actually, especially when I'm a little tired or distracted. Echoing back a small phrase buys me a moment to think while still keeping the conversation feeling warm and engaged.
Right. And it never feels like you're stalling either. It genuinely comes across as attentive listening, which is exactly the impression you want to give during small talk. Let's also cover a few things generally worth avoiding during casual small talk, especially with people you don't know well yet.
Knowing what not to say is honestly just as valuable as knowing what to say, since it helps you avoid accidentally making someone feel uncomfortable during a light, casual exchange. Right. Topics like politics, religion, personal finances, or other sensitive, potentially controversial subjects are usually best avoided in casual small talk settings.
Exactly. Small talk works best with light, neutral topics, saving deeper, more personal, or potentially sensitive subjects for closer relationships, once more trust has been built.
It's also worth avoiding overly negative complaining, especially with someone you've just met. A little light complaining, like about weather or traffic, is fine, but heavy negativity can feel uncomfortable this early in a conversation.
Right. And finally, try to avoid dominating the conversation completely. Small talk works best as a balanced back and forth exchange, rather than one person doing all the talking.
I also think it's worth mentioning, avoid asking overly personal questions too early. Things like someone's age, weight, salary, or relationship status, especially with someone you've just met, since these can feel intrusive or uncomfortable in a casual first conversation.
Right, and cultural expectations vary here too, so when in doubt, it's usually safer to keep early conversations light and general, saving more personal topics for once a genuine relationship has developed.
Let's clear up a few myths before continuing.
Myth 1. Small talk is fake or meaningless. While small talk topics themselves are light, the connection and warmth behind them are genuinely real and often lead to deeper relationships over time.
Right. Almost every close friendship or professional relationship starts with some form of small talk first. It's really just the doorway into something potentially bigger.
I think that reframe is really important. Small talk isn't the opposite of a meaningful relationship. It's usually the very first small step toward one, even if it doesn't feel especially significant in the moment itself. Myth 2. I need perfect grammar to make small talk. Honestly, small talk is one of the most forgiving forms of conversation. Native speakers themselves often use casual, imperfect grammar in small talk too.
Right. Phrases like not much, you aren't grammatically complete sentences, but they're completely normal, natural small talk. Perfection really isn't the goal here.
I think this myth causes a lot of unnecessary stress for learners, worrying about perfect grammar during a fast, casual exchange, when native speakers themselves rarely speak in perfectly complete, formal sentences during small talk. Myth 3. If there's a silence, I've failed. As we mentioned earlier, brief silences happen naturally, even between native speakers, and they don't mean the conversation or you have failed in any way.
Right. Honestly, some of the most comfortable conversations I've had included small, easy silences, where nobody felt the need to fill every single second with talking. Right. Learning to feel comfortable with occasional silence is honestly part of getting comfortable with small talk overall.
I also want to mention something worth being aware of. Small talk expectations vary quite a bit across different cultures, which is especially relevant for our international listeners.
This is such a valuable point too, since understanding cultural context can save a lot of confusion or misunderstanding when navigating small talk in a new environment.
Right. In some cultures, like many English-speaking countries, small talk with strangers is extremely common and expected, even in brief interactions like elevators or checkout lines.
Whereas in other cultures, small talk with strangers might be less common or reserved for slightly more established relationships, and jumping straight into casual chat with someone unfamiliar might feel a little unusual.
Right. So if you're moving to or traveling in an English-speaking country, it's genuinely useful to know that small talk, even brief, casual small talk with complete strangers, is a normal, expected part of daily social life there. Exactly, and it's not necessarily a sign of deep personal interest either. It's often just a friendly social custom, a way of acknowledging another person warmly without expecting a deep or lasting relationship to follow.
That's such a helpful thing to understand, especially for learners who come from cultures with different small talk norms. It removes some of the confusion about what a stranger's friendliness actually means.
Right. And on the flip side, if you're someone who naturally enjoys small talk with strangers, it's also worth being a little sensitive in cultures or situations where that might feel a bit more unexpected, adjusting your approach based on the social context you're in.
Exactly. Small talk isn't a fixed universal formula. It's a flexible social skill that adapts based on where you are and who you're speaking with. Let's go through a few specific situations where small talk commonly happens, along with some tailored phrases for each.
These situations cover a lot of everyday life, so hopefully at least a few of them feel familiar and useful for your own routine. At work, common phrases include, "How was your weekend?" "Busy day today?" or "Have you had lunch yet?" Light, friendly, professional small talk.
For example, passing a colleague in the hallway, "Hey, busy morning?"
Definitely back-to-back meetings all day. How about you?
"Same here, but at least it's almost lunchtime."
Right. Short, friendly, professional, exactly what workplace small talk should sound like. With neighbors, something like, "Lovely day, isn't it?" or "Have you lived here long?" works well for casual neighborhood interactions.
Something like, meeting a neighbor while getting the mail. Lovely evening, isn't it?
It really is. Perfect weather for a walk later.
I might do the same, actually. Enjoy your evening. Right. Brief, warm, and a nice way to build friendly familiarity with people who live nearby.
While traveling, phrases like, "Is this your first time here?" or "Any recommendations for things to do around here?" work great with fellow travelers or locals.
For example, chatting with someone at a hostel. Is this your first time in the city?
No, actually, my third time. I can share a few of my favorite spots if you'd like.
That would be amazing, thank you.
Right. Travel small talk often leads to genuinely useful, friendly exchanges of information, too. In a waiting room or line, simple observations like, "This wait is taking a while," or "Busy day today," work well in these shared, temporary situations. For example, waiting at a clinic, "This wait is definitely taking a while today."
Tell me about it. I've been here almost an hour already.
Right. Shared frustration, expressed lightly, is actually a really natural bonding form of small talk. Meeting someone new at an event. Questions like, "How do you know the host?" or "Have you been to one of these events before?" work perfectly for social gatherings or parties.
For example, at a friend's party. So, how do you know Sarah?
We used to work together a few years ago. What about you?
She's actually my neighbor. We've known each other for a while now.
Right. This kind of question naturally opens up a comfortable, easy conversation between two strangers at a shared event.
Anna, do you have your own small talk story to share?
Actually, yes. When I first started really practicing small talk confidently, I remember a moment at a local market, chatting with a vendor I didn't know at all.
Oh, tell us more.
I simply asked a small, genuine question about one of the products, something like, "How long have you been selling these?" And that small question led to a genuinely lovely 5-minute conversation learning about her small business.
That's such a great example of how a simple, curious question can open up a much richer conversation than expected.
Exactly. And what I remember most is how good it felt afterward. That small interaction genuinely brightened my day, and I think it brightened hers too, all from just one small, friendly question.
That's really the heart of small talk, isn't it? Small moments of genuine, friendly connection, even with complete strangers.
Right. And honestly, I think back on that small conversation more often than I'd have expected. It reminded me that curiosity, more than cleverness, is really the key ingredient in good small talk.
I love that. Curiosity more than cleverness. That's such a helpful reframe for anyone who feels pressured to say something impressive.
Exactly. Genuine curiosity about another person almost always leads somewhere warm and interesting, far more reliably than trying to think of something clever to say. We also received a second story worth sharing from a listener who used to completely avoid small talk at work, staying quiet and only speaking when absolutely necessary.
That's such a relatable starting point, too. A lot of people default to silence, thinking it's the safer, easier option, even when it quietly leaves them feeling more isolated over time. Oh, that sounds like it could feel a little isolating over time.
Right. And he told us he eventually started with something incredibly small, just one friendly comment each morning to a coworker. Something like, "Morning, how's it going?"
That's such a small, manageable first step, similar to what we talked about in our comfort zone episode.
Exactly. And he said within a few weeks, those small morning exchanges genuinely changed how connected he felt at work. Coworkers started greeting him more warmly, too, and the overall atmosphere felt noticeably friendlier.
That's such a great example of how small talk, even in tiny doses, can meaningfully shift your relationships and daily experience over time.
Right. And he specifically mentioned that once small talk became a normal part of his day, bigger conversations, like actually discussing work projects with colleagues, also became noticeably easier and more comfortable.
That makes a lot of sense, too. Small talk really does seem to act like a warm-up, making bigger, more substantial conversations feel less intimidating afterward.
Exactly. It's almost like small talk builds a small bridge of comfort and familiarity, which then makes crossing into deeper conversation feel much more natural.
I want to share a simple, practical framework that can help if you're ever unsure what to talk about. It's called the Ford method.
Oh, I like frameworks. Tell us more. I imagine our listeners will appreciate having something concrete and memorable to fall back on, too.
Ford stands for family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. 4 broad categories that almost always give you something safe, easy to ask about.
Right, so family could be something like, do you have any siblings, or are you close with your family?
Occupation covers work or study questions, like we discussed earlier. What do you do, or what are you studying?
Recreation is about hobbies and free time. What do you like to do for fun, or any hobbies you're passionate about?
And dreams covers future plans or aspirations, something like, any exciting plans coming up? Or is there somewhere you've always wanted to travel?
I really like this framework because whenever you're stuck, not sure what to ask next, you can simply think through these 4 categories and usually find a natural, easy question.
Right. It's such a simple mental tool, but it genuinely removes a lot of the pressure of needing to think of interesting topics completely from scratch.
I actually keep this framework in mind almost automatically now. Whenever a conversation feels like it might be slowing down, I quietly run through family, occupation, recreation, dreams, and almost always find a natural, easy question next.
That's such a practical habit to build. Having a reliable mental backup plan really does reduce a lot of the anxiety around small talk running dry.
Here's another really useful small talk tool. Genuine, simple compliments. They're a lovely, easy way to start or continue a friendly conversation.
Compliments are honestly underrated in small talk. They're low risk, they feel good to give and receive, and they almost always open a natural door into further conversation.
Right. Something like, I love your jacket. Where did you get it? Or, your presentation was really clear. I learned a lot.
These work well because compliments naturally make people feel good, and they often lead directly into a small, related conversation. For example, I love your jacket. Where did you get it?
Oh, thank you. I actually found it at a small shop downtown. It's one of my favorites.
That's great. I'll have to check that shop out sometime.
Right. That's a complete natural small talk exchange, built entirely from one simple, genuine compliment.
It's worth mentioning, though, that compliments should feel genuine and appropriate, focused on things like style, work, or general effort, rather than anything overly personal, especially with someone you don't know well yet.
Right. A simple compliment about someone's bag, their presentation, or even their choice of coffee order works perfectly well and feels warm without crossing into anything uncomfortable.
I also think timing matters a little here, too. A compliment right at the start of an interaction or naturally woven into the conversation tends to feel much more genuine than one that feels randomly inserted.
Right. And honestly, the more genuine and specific a compliment is, the better it tends to land. I love your jacket feels warmer than a vague, you look nice, simply because it shows you actually noticed something specific. We got a great question. What if I run out of things to say and there's an awkward silence? What should I do?
Such a common worry. Honestly, a brief silence isn't actually as terrible as it feels in the moment. It happens naturally in real conversations, even between native speakers.
Right. But if you want to gently fill it, you can always return to your surroundings for inspiration, commenting on something nearby, or simply asking a new, open question related to the previous topic.
Right, and honestly, it's also completely fine to politely end the conversation there too. Not every small talk exchange needs to continue for a long time.
We also got a follow-up question. What if I don't understand what the other person said? Small talk moves so fast.
That's such a common, honest concern. It's completely okay to politely ask someone to repeat themselves. Something like, "Sorry, could you say that again?" Or, "Sorry, I didn't quite catch that."
Right. Native speakers ask each other to repeat things all the time, too. It's a completely normal, expected part of casual conversation, not a sign of weak English.
Exactly. And if you genuinely can't follow the conversation at all, it's also fine to say something honest and simple, like, "My English is still improving. Could you speak a little slower, please?"
Right. Most people are genuinely happy to help and slow down a little, especially once they know you're learning. There's no need to feel embarrassed about asking.
I also think it helps to remember that even native speakers frequently mishear each other in casual, noisy environments, coffee shops, busy streets, crowded events. So asking someone to repeat themselves is a completely normal part of everyday conversation, not something unique to language learners.
Right. And honestly, asking a clarifying question often makes the conversation feel more engaged, not less, since it shows the other person you're genuinely trying to follow and understand what they're saying. Nice weather today, isn't it?
These are the kind of sentences you can genuinely use today in a real conversation, not just as an exercise. Any plans for the weekend?
Oh, really? That sounds interesting. Tell me more.
It was really nice talking to you.
This line is taking forever, isn't it?
Let's also try a couple of slightly longer sentences.
I love your jacket. Where did you get it?
Sorry, could you say that again? I didn't quite catch it.
What have you been up to lately? It's been a while since we talked.
Try saying one of these sentences out loud today, maybe in a real conversation with someone nearby. Let's review a few useful words and phrases from today's episode.
There were quite a few today, since this topic is so full of practical everyday vocabulary. First, small talk, meaning light, casual conversation about everyday topics.
For example, I practiced small talk with a stranger at the coffee shop today.
Next, to strike up a conversation, meaning to start a casual conversation, often with someone new.
For example, I struck up a conversation with someone in line at the store.
We also use the phrase follow-up question, meaning a question that continues or builds on something someone just said.
For example, I asked a follow-up question to keep the conversation going.
And finally, awkward silence, meaning an uncomfortable pause in conversation where nobody is speaking.
For example, there was a brief awkward silence, but then we found a new topic to talk about.
One more useful phrase. To keep a conversation going, meaning to continue talking rather than letting it stop or end quickly.
For example, I asked a follow-up question to keep the conversation going.
And genuine, meaning honest and real, not fake or forced.
For example, a genuine compliment works much better than a forced or exaggerated one.
Try using one or two of these words today, maybe in a comment describing your own small talk experience.
And one final phrase, to break the ice, meaning to say or do something that relieves initial tension or awkwardness when meeting someone new.
For example, I made a small joke about the weather just to break the ice.
We talked about what small talk really is, a way of building friendly connection, not a test of intelligence or English level, and something that follows a simple, learnable pattern.
We discussed why small talk feels hard for English learners. Speed, idioms, cultural differences, and fear of awkward silence, and how it's really its own specific skill, separate from overall English level.
We shared our own stories, my experience learning that small talk just needs simple warmth, and Anna's story about a lovely conversation with a market vendor.
We covered common small talk topics: weather, weekends, surroundings, work, travel, and food.
We shared useful phrases for starting conversations, commenting on situations, asking open questions, showing interest, and ending politely.
We talked about keeping conversations going with follow-up questions and what to avoid in casual small talk.
And we covered small talk in different situations: work, neighbors, traveling, waiting rooms, and social events.
We also introduced the Ford method: family, occupation, recreation, and dreams, a simple framework for finding easy conversation topics, and talked about using genuine compliments naturally in conversation.
We covered common myths about small talk and how small talk expectations can vary across different cultures.
Overall, a huge amount of practical material today, but hopefully it all boils down to that one simple idea. Small talk is about warmth and curiosity, not perfection. Before we close, one last small tip. This week, try one small, low-pressure small talk exchange with a cashier, a neighbor, or anyone nearby, using just one simple phrase from today's episode.
Right, it doesn't need to be a long conversation. Even one warm, simple exchange counts as real valuable practice.
And remember Jake's mantra from earlier, simple warmth is enough. You don't need to be impressive, just friendly and present.
And if you're feeling a little nervous about trying it, remember the Ford method too. Family, occupation, recreation, dreams. A simple framework for finding easy conversation topics, and talked about using genuine compliments naturally in conversation. Next time, we're going to talk about something a little different. How to talk about your feelings in English. Useful phrases for expressing emotions naturally in everyday conversation.
So after today's lighter, casual episode, we'll go a little deeper next time, but still with the same practical, easy approach.
Learning to talk about emotions is honestly a natural next step once small talk starts to feel comfortable, since deeper conversations often grow directly out of those small, casual first exchanges. We're really looking forward to that one too.
If you enjoyed this episode, like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments, what's one small talk phrase you'll try using this week?
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you in the next episode.
Bye!
Bye!